Welcome. My name is Cindy Lopez, the host of this CHC podcast, Voices of Compassion. We hope you find a little courage, feel connected, and experience compassion every time you listen. Today's classrooms look nothing like they did a generation ago. Teachers are showing up every day to reach students who are anxious, exhausted, withdrawn, and sometimes in crisis. And they're doing it without the resources, time, and support they need. In this episode, we talk with Amanda Morin, neurodiversity expert and nationally known speaker and author. Our conversation takes an honest look at what K-12 teachers are facing right now. The surge in student mental health needs, the pressure to act as teachers and counselors and therapists all at once, and the real toll that it's taking on all of them. We also talk about what teachers say they actually need and where they turn when they need support. They go to school counselors who are stretched thin or mental health professionals in their schools who carry overwhelming caseloads, and teachers are often left to figure it out on their own. That's exactly why ELLIS was created. ELLIS is a free, trusted resource built specifically for K-12 educators, designed to help teachers confidently respond to the mental health needs and learning challenges they encounter every day with their students. ELLIS was developed with direct input from teachers, ensuring that it reflects real, nuanced realities of classroom life. It's practical, it's evidence-informed, and it's available right now at askellis.org at no cost. Yep, it's free. If you're a teacher who's ever felt overwhelmed or simply alone in a hard moment with a struggling student, ELLIS was made for you. Visit askellis.org today. Amanda, thank you so much for joining us today. It's fun to be here with you and have this conversation just about neurodiversity and how we can really support educators around that. Before we dive into our conversation, I'd love it if you could take a minute to tell our listeners just a little bit more about you.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. It is a delight to be here too. There's so much to tell about myself and I never quite know where to start. I can say I'm an educator. I've been in education more years than I like to tell people. I currently serve as the Director of Academic Services at Compass High School, which is solely for neurodivergent students, so that's super fun. I myself am neurodivergent and have 3 neurodivergent children who are mostly young adults at this time, so it's a professional and personal overlap for sure. And I've written a number of books on neurodiversity and special education. So I think the best thing to say is for this conversation, this is the life that I'm immersed in all the time.
I find so often that people in this field, especially neurodiversity, have a really personal connection, whether they've experienced it themselves or family member, child, whatever. It's so interesting, that personal connection.
Well, and it's interesting too, because I think it makes you more empathetic to the conversations and the needs and all of those kinds of things on all sides. For me, that's really important is when I come into conversations, I feel like I'm not just an educator and I'm not just a parent. I have this broader scope of understanding of what everybody needs.
Compass is really lucky to have you. So let's talk about what's happening in K-12 classrooms today. Maybe describe a typical classroom, if there is such a thing.
I was just thinking, is there a typical classroom? I mean, it really varies, right? It varies from school to school and it varies from grade level to grade level. But one of the things that I'm seeing mostly in public schools and somewhat in private and independent schools is there are larger classes than there used to be. So there are more kids in a classroom. Say there are 25 kids in a classroom to 30 kids in a classroom. And that teachers are really, I don't want to say struggling, but I think they're noticing more things that are of a challenge to them in that classroom. They're not just responding to learning and content delivery, they're also responding to a lot of things that I think of as mental health challenges, if you will. So anxiety, and a lot of teachers will say to me, like, there's such behavior in my classroom. And I always ask them to describe what that means, because behavior in my mind is an action or a reaction to something.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah. But I do think what we're seeing is this bump up against the needs of the kids and the training of the teachers. Some teachers are feeling really out of their boundaries and limits of what they've learned in order to support the kids who are coming to their classrooms right now.
So we talked about a typical classroom and all the things that are happening. How does neurodiversity show up in the classroom?
So this is important to me, like, to define the terms, if you don't mind, for a minute, because neurodiversity shows up in every classroom. And I'm probably more of a stickler for this than most people because I nerd out on this a little bit. When we're talking about neurodiversity, we're talking about minds of all kinds. So a space is neurodiverse the same way the world is biodiverse. There are all kinds of things happening, and every mind thrives in a different kind of environment, the way things in nature thrive in different environments. When we're talking about neurodivergence, we're talking about a mind of a student, of a learner, that is not responding in a way to the environment that we would expect. And I think that's like the we would expect is the important piece for me. So the way they communicate, the way they learn, the way they process or output information may be a little bit different. So when we talk about neurodiversity in the classroom, we're saying classrooms. But I think the point is that within neurodiversity, you have neurodivergent minds. And some of them you may know in a classroom because they have an individualized education program or an IEP or a 504 plan, or because somebody has said, this kid has ADHD, by the way. But sometimes we don't know that. And so I think when we look at the gamut of the classroom, truly every classroom has neurodivergent minds in there, whether you know it or not. And sometimes those are the students who catch the attention of teachers in ways that really challenge them because they're not sure what to do with what they're seeing. They're not sure how to teach to that mind. They're not sure what exactly is happening.
Thinking about teachers and educators, I think teachers today, especially, are under a certain amount of pressure to respond to the mental health needs of their students and the learning needs of their students. And to be honest, it's probably hard to separate those. And teachers aren't trained to be mental health providers, but they're increasingly expected to kind of meet the child where they're at, which often involves that. I'm wondering, as we're talking about classrooms today, what are we hearing? What are you hearing from educators about their experience in teaching?
I'm hearing a bunch of things. The first is that teachers are incredibly overwhelmed by all of the demands in their classrooms. And I am not just in academic services, I also teach. I teach a class, and so I'm teaching 3 times a week. I'm seeing it too. There are days when I feel overwhelmed. I'm not coming at this from a theoretical perspective. I'm coming at this from a like in the trenches kind of perspective. They're feeling like they are the frontline workers. And I think that's the important thing. So when we have classrooms, we are truly the first responders because we are the first ones who see those kids even before we realize that they need higher level support. So teachers are trying to find strategies that they can put into place that are going to work for all of their students, but also trying to figure out how to personalize for the students. So there's a lot of like set shifting and mental juggling going on in addition to planning and teaching and trying to make sure they're meeting the needs of the curriculum and all of these things. It's a hard job.
Yes. And what we hear over and over again from teachers, please don't ask me to do one more thing or add another curriculum or give me another resource. I really don't have time. I want help and support that is going to be actionable and practical and really meet the needs of my students in a way that doesn't take a bunch of time to do. And at the same time, increases their own efficacy in responding to those kinds of things.
I think that's a very good summation of some of the things I'm hearing too. I think teachers are saying, I want to be able to teach and I want to be able to take care of the kids that are in my classroom. And I don't know if I can do both at the same time. Help me figure out how to do that.
Yeah. In lots of schools, there are roles like a school counselor or a behavior specialist or a learning specialist who can help. But often those people are also overwhelmed and have big caseloads. So it's not always easy to get the help or support that you want or need. And lots of times, teachers also have coaches. And my experience is that often newer teachers have coaches, whereas experienced or more tenured teachers may not. But that coaching aspect, someone coming alongside and working with you, is also really valuable for teachers. But that also takes time. However, the payoff, hopefully, is effective, meaningful, valuable enough to the teacher.
And I think that the tenured teachers often end up playing the role of coach, whether it's official or not. They end up being that mentor, that coach. And I think it's easy to forget that no matter how long you've been in education, there's always something to learn. There's always something new you need, and you always need that.
Yeah. Yeah. Life is that way.
Life is that
Always
way.
learning.
Yeah, totally.
How are students showing up at school today?
I laugh because it depends on the day. But
True.
I mean, as a whole, I think we don't hear about it when students are showing up great and ready to learn. I'm just going to be honest. So there are probably classrooms where the answer is they're organized, they're ready to learn, they have what they need, they're not hungry, they're not tired. Those are not the classrooms I hear about because nobody says, guess what went great today?
Yeah. Unfortunately, yes.
Unfortunately, right? I think we should do that more often. But I think like a lot of students are showing up with anxiety. They're showing up tired. Kids are not getting enough sleep. They're showing up with stress, and they're telling us that, which is kind of good that they're telling us that. There's this sense that they're not connecting with each other in person. And so we're seeing a lot of kids who are reacting to the outside world, right? All of the things that happen on the outside world, it's coming into the classrooms for sure. Yeah.
Yes. What are educators observing about the behavior of their students? And when I say that, how are teachers perceiving how their kids are showing up at school? And what's behind what they're seeing?
Oh, I get to answer the question for everybody. No, I'm just kidding. I will say, I like how you ask it, though. I like that you're asking how they perceive what they're seeing because they don't always know. But what they're describing, they'll use words like they're acting out, they're being defiant, they're being disruptive. I've seen this in my classroom. I've seen kids fall asleep a little bit, and I'll just kind of go over and give a little nudge. They're describing argumentativeness. They're describing work avoidance. It's interesting. I would love for teachers to be able to say to me, like, what I really am seeing is this kid is really struggling with reading. And so at reading time, they're deciding they need to go to the bathroom. That's not what they're saying. They're saying, this kid disappears from my classroom. So I think that's how I am hearing this being described. And I think all of the things that we talked about kids showing up as, like that anxiety, that need to feel understood, that need to really feel skilled. In my mind, that's behind some of that. When a kid is showing up with some sort of action or reaction that we don't understand, for the most part, it's like a lagging skill, whether that's expressing what they need or not knowing what they need.
Right. As you just noted, for educators, seeing whatever that behavior is that they're observing, what's the context in which it's happening? Is it during an unstructured time? Is it during passing through hallways? Is it recess? Or is it independent work? Is it working in a group? Is it math? Is it writing? There's a million things, right?
Right.
So I think that's also a really important piece is understanding how things are happening with the student. And we often say this as educators, especially educators of neurodiverse kids, is if they could, they would. So it's usually not I just don't want to do it.
Right. Right. There's a reason. There's a reason. Well, and I think contextually speaking too, right? There's the context of where we are right now with the kids when stuff is happening, but there's also the context of what they bring into the classroom too. When they come into your class, have they just come from recess? Have they just come from lunch? Have they just come from a particularly difficult class?
Mm-hmm.
Are they falling asleep because, the time change messed with their systems?
Like mine.
Like mine. That's why I mentioned that one. And I think the point about that is important because as teachers, I think there's this like implicit expectation that we're supposed to know all of that about all of our kids.
That's a good point.
And we don't because we don't always know all of that.
So what are you hearing from teachers about the support that they're saying they need?
Well, when they crawl out of the closet where they're crying. No, just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, there is some truth in that, but to your point that you made just in some previous remarks, it's just we tend to focus on the things that are not going well versus the things that are. And so that's just a tangential note there.
I think I'll answer this in a way that actually sort of brings us together. Like, one of the things I'm hearing from teachers is the excitement from them when something goes well, right?
Yeah.
And I love that. I came home yesterday. I had a really good class with my students. And my husband, who is not an educator, was listening to me about the great things about that class, and he was nodding along. But like, I'm hearing some of that, which is really good. But then when I get down to it, I can say what went well. So my teachers, I can say to them, what went so well about that class? And what I'm realizing is what went well about that class is they knew what strategies to use. They had the support they felt like they needed. They felt like they could confidently respond to what was happening right in front of them when a kid was not doing the work or when something else happened. So what I glean from that is they're hungry for that kind of thing. They're hungry for strategies and support that they can put into place and feel confident that it's supporting the students.
CHC's Voices of Compassion podcast is made possible by the generosity of people like you. To learn more about supporting CHC, go to chconline.org/donate. Also, make sure to follow us on social media for more inspiring and educational content from CHC.
So, where do teachers turn for help? What do they wish they had? What are you hearing on that front?
I mean, I think they wish they had the magic solution, right?
Yes.
We don't have the magic solution. They're talking to each other a lot, I think. So they are picking and choosing from each other's toolboxes in a lot of ways. I think what teachers wish they had is that coach on a regular basis. That's the instinct, because I know that when I go into school districts and have conversations with teachers, and when I speak with my own teachers, they are asking for help and ideas. They're looking for somebody to bounce ideas off of, to describe what's happening, and to figure out what's their next step. I wish we all could have a coach with us at all times, but what they're looking for is stuff that works and that we know works, not just that we think might work, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that teachers, yes, that feeling of, oh my gosh, I had a great day today. And it's because I felt prepared going into the day. I knew my lesson plans were really spot on. I knew what I was doing. I knew how to intervene. And perhaps because, one, I've been teaching for a long time, I've done it before. Or two, because I had a conversation with a colleague that really helped me out yesterday. Or three, as you noted, like I just talked with my coach and it was really great. We were able to really dig into what was going on and I was able to use some of those things. In all of those cases, teachers may not have access to a coach. They may not have access to a colleague, at least in a timely manner. So we've been hearing all of that from teachers in our work with schools and community engagement, where we partner with schools and we'll go in and do some professional learning or we'll do some parent education. And as we have worked with them, we were just trying to figure out a way to make the help that they needed, the support that they needed, more accessible to them. So to that end, we've developed a resource for K-12 educators that's designed to support them in responding to these needs of their students and the neurodiversity in their classrooms. And to our listeners, you can find that resource at askellis.org, ASKELLIS.org. And I know, Amanda, you're familiar with Ellis because you've been working with us on it. So Ellis is a chat-based resource that teachers can use. They go and describe a situation with a student, and Ellis comes back with practical, actionable strategies and tools that they can use with their students. And it's created from our own content and trusted partner content. From your perspective as an educator and an expert in neurodiversity, how do you think Ellis could help teachers?
Well, and I have had the privilege of working with you on Ellis from the very beginning of it. One of the things that I really love about Ellis is that it is gated to evidence-based information. So a teacher who's going to ask about things, they're not going to get some wacky idea that we don't feel is good, right? And then I think that's really super important. And Cindy, as you know, I like to try and break things to see how we can make them better. And so part of my fun with Ellis as it was developing was poking at it and seeing how could we make it better? What's going to make this easier for teachers and what do they need quicker? And so I was poking at it and saying, like, where do we need to get to the strategies quicker? And so I feel really confident that I've broken it enough that we fixed it. And I don't mean it was broken to start with, but like I poked holes and I love where it landed. And one of the things I think that Ellis does really well is it allows teachers the ability to reframe how they're thinking about something's happening, even just in the questions that it asks of teachers. So it's not asking, is this kid being totally disruptive? It's asking to describe the behaviors or the things that you're seeing in the classroom and the challenges you're having with it. Even just going through the phase of describing what you are struggling with, it's helping teachers reframe their mindset around it. And I think that's super important. I think it's super important because it's also asking teachers to think about what are the strengths of the student, not just what are the deficits. Generally speaking, I think that's one thing that Ellis does really well for teachers. I also think Ellis gives them the opportunity to explore strategies when they need them and in short bursts. And I think the short bursts is really important because they do have resources of people who they could talk to. That person's not always available. And when I'm up at 1 a.m. because my brain woke me up and said, oh no, what about this kid that I didn't think about I was going to do this with? I'm not going to call the school counselor because that's going to break a really good relationship if I call them at 1 a.m. But Ellis is available for me to type all of that into and get back some ideas that I can try the next day.
Yeah.
And I love that. I also love that it is gated in a way. It's different than like the ChatGPTs of the world. ChatGPT, we use it, people use it, but you don't always know whether or not what you're getting back is good, right?
Right.
And evaluating that takes more cognitive load. And so Ellis having already done that is huge. It's a big deal.
It's a time saver too. So from some of the educators using Ellis, some of the things we're hearing is it's saving them time and steps. Like it doesn't take multiple steps when you need support quickly. There's something there. And one of the users said that she described this situation with a student, what she tried and what she was concerned about. And what stood out to her is that the plan that came back from Ellis, the strategies and the tools, didn't carry over her internal reactive wording. It helped her translate what she was thinking into language that she could actually use with a parent or the student success team. And she said that having that language was really helpful. And especially when you're in the moment with a student, you need some of those soundtracks in your head so you can respond in a way that really supports the student and doesn't escalate the situation. And I think it's important to note that teachers are really expert. Ellis is not about assuming they don't have the expertise. It's saying it's just a resource to come alongside you. And I think that that's really important. And it can provide a lot of value for teachers and it's free. So that helps too.
Free is always good. Free is always good. And there's something in what you said, that story about the teacher that stood out to me, which is she typed in what she'd already tried. And even in conversations sometimes with other colleagues or counselors or whomever you're working with, and counselors are also your colleagues, but you know, even in those conversations with colleagues, there are times where they'll say, well, I would think you should try this, and I think you should try this. And by the time you get through all of that, I've already tried this. I've already tried that. Thanks for that suggestion. You're out of time. And so I'm really struck by you saying she had typed in there already what she'd done. And Ellis is like, cool. I mean, yeah. Wouldn't it be neat if it's actually doing that? Cool. In the background, Ellis is like, okay, so this has already been tried. So let's give some other ideas and strategies. I also think that bite-sizedness is super important.
Yeah, and that's another thing I think that Ellis does well. Thinking about another teacher I was talking to who's using Ellis, and she was working with one of her students with ADHD who was just consistently behind in terms of turning in work. And so Ellis helped her think through how assignments could be broken down more clearly. And Ellis really laid it all out for her. And she found that she could easily copy that information in Ellis and send it home to parents and saying, here's a strategy you could use, or to the math teacher or whatever, here's a strategy that you could use. And teachers do know how to teach, and they know how to scaffold and break down assignments for students. Ellis just, again, gives them some more ideas and some structure around how to do that. And I think that has been what we've been hearing from our teachers, is that's been a really valuable tool for them as well.
Well, the continuity is valuable. When you were talking about that, I was thinking too, the continuity of being able to say, as a teaching team, all of whom have the same student, we can try the same strategies and we can see how they work in one classroom and how they work in another classroom, because then you have a way to track interventions as well. And I'm not saying Ellis is tracking the interventions for you, but what I'm saying is, like, when a teacher finds a strategy and they share it with the rest of the team and everybody's putting that into place, it gives you an opportunity to say, is everybody trying the same thing and are they getting the same results? Same thing with continuity. If you're sending home information to parents, you have a shared language, you have some shared ideas. And I think that is an incredibly valuable thing for teachers to have, because it saves you teaching time, not just research time, because you're already grabbing data and then 3 weeks in, you can revisit it. And you're not sitting down every 3 weeks and saying, well, what have you tried and what have you tried and what have you tried and what was the result? And I think that's such an important part of being a team at a school, is having the same language and the same strategies and being able to look at a student in all those different contexts.
We've already talked about this, but I think it's worth saying it again. The content in Ellis, when you describe a scenario with a student and Ellis comes back with results, those results are based on this knowledge base of content that we've created with our own content and trusted partner content like CAST and CASTLE and Understood and Nyhouse Education and Search Institute and the Reading League and Digital Promise, NCLD. There's so much more. And that really makes it easy to feel confident in the fact that this could really work. Or I'm going to try this because it comes from trusted resource, evidence-aligned strategies. Amanda, what do you think the greatest value is that Ellis can provide for teachers?
We talked about time, right? And the ability to do it at your own pace. I also think one of the really valuable things that maybe we don't talk about so much when we talk about Ellis is it gives teachers an opportunity to explore things without feeling judged.
Yeah, good point.
Because when you're doing it, Ellis is not judging you. The results are not saying you're doing something wrong. And regardless of whether or not you have the best colleagues in the world, most people don't like feeling as though they don't know how to handle something. And so to me, the value of having a tool, a companion, if you will, that you can share information with and get back resources and evidence-based support without feeling like they're saying you're doing it wrong is invaluable. I don't think I can place a value on that.
That's really important to note. I don't know that I've thought about it that way, especially in all cases, but I was thinking if you're a new teacher and you're feeling maybe a little less confident, like you don't want to go to your team teacher who's been teaching for 30 years and say, can you help me? Because you might feel, like you said, a little judged in that, or feel like I should know how to do this. This is not that hard. Why don't I know how to do this? But it's really having Ellis as a sounding board and then for Ellis to be able to come back and give you some strategies that are actually viable and can work.
Well, and I think it goes both ways, because the teacher who's been teaching a very long time will also feel the same way. And I think that's one of the really neat things about Ellis is, like, it doesn't matter where you are in your career. You can come in and ask and look for strategy and advice. I also think one of the things that Ellis does well is it's bringing what we would typically think of as special education strategies to general education teachers. And we are talking about kids who are in general education classrooms. We're talking about education as a whole, and the expectation that general education teachers have special education knowledge is not reasonable. And so I think there's really something there to be said for the fact that we're really empowering teachers in their own professional development as well.
Have you used Ellis?
I have used Ellis. Sometimes it's come back with things that I've written. So I look at that and go, I gave you some good advice, which is kind of funny. But I have used it because I have students who baffle me. And I've been doing this a long, long time. And I've used it. And actually, that's when I talked about the idea of like poking at it. That's what I was doing, is I was poking at it with scenarios that seemed very complicated to me. I like it a lot. I really want to get my staff using it too, because it brings us this opportunity to have a shared resource and a shared language. And also, I think it's easy. The interface is super easy to use.
So, Amanda, out of all the things we've talked about today, what do you hope our listeners really take away from this conversation?
I really want listeners to walk away with an understanding of how complex teaching really is. Because it's easy to theoretically understand what's going on in a classroom. But until you're in the classroom and trying to manage all of the things, I think it's not easy to understand how complex it is. And then for listeners who are in a classroom, definitely Ellis is support for them. But they have other supports in the building that we've talked about. And that we know that you are trying so hard to really meet the needs of the students in your classroom, and that it's seen and it's valued.
Thank you, Amanda, so much for giving us your time today and being part of this conversation with me. And to our listeners, one, if you're a parent out there, we'd love for you to share Ellis with your favorite teacher, your kid's teacher. We'd love for you to do that. And to educators, we'd love for you to try it out. It's free. You can find it at askellis.org. You'll also see it in the show notes. And also to our listeners, Ellis is one of the resources that CHC has developed and provides. And there are lots of resources at CHC, from a lot of free resources from our online resource library to parent support groups to this podcast. And there are also all kinds of services at CHC that you can access for your kids, whether it's evaluations or therapy or our schools. So we hope that you'll reach out to us at CHC as well, chconline.org. So thank you again, Amanda. And to our listeners, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Cindy.
Visit us online at podcast.chconline.org. Make sure to subscribe to Voices of Compassion so you never miss an episode. And we'd love it if you'd leave us a rating and review. Have a question? Send us an email or voice memo at podcasts@chconline.org. We're here for you when you need us.